injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
The homers.
What's up? Fish on First Live, the final one of the first half in a certain way. I'm Eli Sussman right here. As always, we're presented by Berger and Hicks entering the start of every Marlins series. Got Kevin Burrell, got Nate Kardsmer, got Alex Krutchik right here, and we'll have at least one or two or three more people popping in over the course of the hour right here. And thanks everybody in the chat for hopping in. What's up, DeMar? Good to see you, and all of our regulars in the chat. I'm sure we're going to have a very active show. Before we get into anything, I want to do a heads up about our next stream because we are deviating from the normal schedule, not waiting until the second half begins. It's a full week until the next Marlins series. On Sunday, that is when Major League Baseball Amateur Draft begins, the first of 3 days of it. It starts at 7 p.m. The Marlins do not pick until we think around 8:30 at 16th overall. So we're going to fire that up at around 8 p.m. It has been right around our most watched stream each of the last 2 years when we've done it in both 2023 and 2022. And so we're expecting big things again this year. And we hope people will join us for that with a lot of draft-related drama as we watch that play out in real time, react to it in real time as well, and analyze what happens right after the Marlins pick as well. So that's probably going to be about an hour long from 8 to 9 on Sunday night, right after the end of this Reds series. We're going to get into that. I know, Kevin, you in particular, you're pretty hyped for that, aren't you?
I'm very excited. A lot of names to dive into, and it's an interesting situation for a Marlins team that, it's pretty bad, but still really good names at 16 that they could go into. We'll get into them, but, Cam Smith is out there, Tibbs, Walker Yannick. I mean, you could check out Hector's coverage, which has been amazing. It's definitely been a good guide to where to kind of keep up with these prospects. So, and I think he's putting out the final mock draft either tomorrow or drops on the morning of Sunday. So make sure just check out Hector's content. He's been doing a phenomenal job, and he will be there. So we're going to have in-person coverage.
That's right. That's right. The first time that we pulled that trick, fooled the MLB credentialing people to let us in on the floor for that in Texas as it goes down. Really quickly, just looking back at this previous series against the Astros, it went exactly the way most of us expected, not the way Kevin expected, but most other people had the foresight to predict the Astros to beat up on the Marlins right here. Nate had the misfortune of watching the final game of that series. So I guess I'll start with him right here. Anything in particular that you can take away from this series, Nate, against a team that not only has a big talent advantage, but had been kind of playing well for an extended period? Anything that stuck out to you from any of these 3 games against the Astros? All of them Astros wins.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday we saw Rodrigo Munoz give the longest start of his career. Impressive after, I'd say, the 3rd inning. He started to really settle in and more so attack the hitters than he did in the first couple innings. Defense let him down a little bit. His offense, I feel like every time the Marlins scored, the Astros got it right back. But his sinker wasn't too hot. He generated no whiffs, and I think he threw it 16 times, and the Astros hitters really jumped over it. But that's pretty much it on Munoz. Hitting-wise, yesterday wasn't too strong either. I mean, 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. The outfielders looked well. Jazz hit 2 homers this series. DLC got his former team back again. And Jesus Sanchez had 2 doubles yesterday. But really, I mean, kind of like you said, Eli, was Astros team that hasn't lost a series since the middle of June against, the 2024 Marlins. It's kind of what we all expected. You hope to at least get 1 in Cincinnati, but this series, not too much to write home about.
Yeah, one difference in something that we kind of expressed some confusion about is entering the series, Jazz's power numbers have been down pretty much lower than they'd ever been in a full season before. And then this series, 2 of the 3 games, he hits homers. One of them last night, a leadoff home run in the series opener. Alex Krutchik, even though people feel like they know Jazz pretty thoroughly, this is coming down to the wire with him being in trade rumors just a few weeks until the deadline. Does it help him at all and help the Marlins at all that all of a sudden, like he has this mini power surge to kind of check yet another box that like makes him an appealing guy right before you assume that these negotiations really start to heat up?
I think it helps. He's always known for being a guy who has pop in his bat. He was missing it a little bit this year, but he's looked a lot better lately. He's been great in that leadoff spot, especially. I think more than anything, the biggest holdup with other teams has been his durability and his ability to actually play in every game. I think more than just the power. I think the fact that how many games has he missed? He's missed 1 or 2 games. I don't even think it was injury related necessarily. I think that's really the big checkbox the really big check that has been checked off.
Last night he DH'd last night for because he had banged into the wall the night before. I think those are some of the only days where he's either missed or been a DH is when he's made an awkward play into the wall. That's been the only threat to him physically all year long. No IL stints though. He's never missed more than 1 game in a row, and he was at least he was in the lineup. And Nick Gordon actually made like a decent play defensively. I've been kind of harsh on his defense in the outfield.
The outfield defense hasn't been bad the last couple of weeks. And also going back to the wall thing, it's funny because even last year, unless I'm missing a smaller injury, his biggest holdup was he was out for a while because he ran into the wall and got turf toe. Like even last year, he didn't have any soft tissue injuries.
Right.
I think right when he came back, I think it was right when he came back against Boston that year. He had something. I don't know what it was related to, but he definitely had another injury that kept him out for, I would say, quite a bit for a decent amount of time for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think
you're right about that. He did come back for the Boston series and then was out again after that. Yeah. That wall has been his kryptonite.
Right. And as Tamar notes, there was like one awkward play right after the wall where he got kind of close to it, and then he like brought his arm in, called that like an alligator arm, where he got nervous even before he got to the wall. So it was in his head a little bit right there in that last moment. But yeah, otherwise in these 3 games, we were expecting Alex Carver to be on here, and I was going to mess with him about Brian Hoeing, who failed his starter audition in the middle game of this series. He somehow made it through 3 innings. It did not look like he was going to, because he had 5 in those first 2 right there. Kevin, as desperate as this team is for rotation help, I don't think that Hoeing experiment is going to last a whole lot longer, is it, with him as a starter or even as an opener?
You kind of noted it, not too long ago with Max Meyer, that he's been going 6 innings for quite a bit now. Maybe that's just in preparation to get him up there after the deadline. I really think that's when he will be up. But, I mean, they may just need to continue to use Hoeing. They really don't have much more unless Beyozo is called up again to take over that rotation spot for Hoeing. I don't think this is a good situation for Hoeing, honestly, either. He was doing really well in the bullpen. He was by far the best reliever before Tanner Scott began going on this historical stretch. But yeah, not a very good outing for Mr. Hoeing. Now again, in a very hitter-friendly environment, but still, no excuses with that. I mean, there's Ronel Blanco that night before was amazing against the Marlins. So yeah, I mean, just got to see what happens with this rotation. But Beyozo probably, I know he started yesterday, I want to say. So
yeah, he did well. He pitched 5 innings. Yeah, I think 1 unearned run in that outing in AAA. So I like to make it clear, this time of year is unlike anything else around the All-Star break, because you can switch around to your rotation any way you want coming out of the break at this point. And anybody that pitched recently, like yesterday or the day before, they're not going to be used again until the break. So to me, I would not be surprised at all if we see if it's Beozo, then it's Kyle Tyler tonight. If Kyle Tyler looks good tonight, he was doing fine before they sent him down. He's another guy that could come up and like temporary fill in a spot right there. But I don't think I think Hoeing he found his niche as a reliever, and for them to try to make something more out of him is kind of a fruitless endeavor. And the only thing, you only do it out of desperation right here.
I also said something similar with John Birdie, what I'm about to say about Brian Hoeing. Remember, there was like a brief period before Birdie got traded when it was possible that he was going to be the starting shortstop. And I remember telling you guys, like, part of what makes Birdie so good is that he can play any position you need him to. So I kind of like Brian Hoeing as a swingman because we've seen last year he could start a game and do pretty well at it. I think if you make him a starter full time, I feel like that takes away some of what makes him valuable to this team. Exactly.
Yeah. I got to give you credit. I've never heard anybody link those two specifically, but I see where you're going with that. And yeah, I agree. So let me pivot to something that I put out today on Jazz, because this is going to, however many shows we have left with Jazz on the team, we got to talk about Jazz because he is far and away the player on this Marlins active roster that has the most value as a trade chip, and he's the one that draws a lot of appeal. And whether they move him or not, it's a huge decision, and exactly what they get in return is hugely impactful on like however the Marlins organization goes from here. It's a huge decision that we think is reaching its climax in these next couple of weeks. Maybe it goes down to the deadline. Maybe it gets done before we get back for the next series. So that's why we got to talk about it between now and then, just to get a good idea about what the Marlins should actually want to accomplish in a potential Jazz trade, and where he might go and how this could all play out. This is not based on any sourcing other than what we had from John Heyman yesterday, pointing out, reporting that the Yankees had internal discussions, not negotiations with the Marlins, but internal discussions about Jazz, presumably as joining their infield, and kind of alluding to that he would push Gleyber Torres out of second base for them, at least for the rest of the season, and be with them moving forward. So this is the proposal that I cooked up on the site. It is further explained if you go to Fish on First, packaging Jazz and Tanner Scott to the Yankees for Spencer Jones, top 100 prospect in baseball, top 1 or top 2 prospect in the Yankees organization right now. Oswald Peraza, buying low on a guy that did have considerable prospect hype just a couple of years ago. And I'll do my best with this name. Engelth Urania, who is a catcher / first baseman in rookie ball right now, having an amazing season down there, but small sample, first time he's ever gotten any significant playing experience. That is a 5-player deal I had in mind. What do you think about that, Nate, in terms of the likelihood of it going through, and which side do you think gets the better end of that deal if it did go through?
Honestly, I think the Yankees would get the better end of that deal, if I'm being honest. Spencer Jones has kind of struggled this year. Peraza, like you said, kind of be buying low on him. I don't know much about, the next coming of Urania. Be another, so hopefully he does better than his predecessor. But, like you said, Jazz is definitely increasing his value, especially with the series that he had in Houston. I noted in my article yesterday, he's back on 2020 pace. So, I mean, the Yankees could use him anywhere, honestly. But like you said, he's supposed to be in the infield, and it's been noted he's been taking ground balls pre-game the entire season. We have Isaac asked Skip if he was going to be using the infield. He said no, but he has been getting work there. And then obviously Tanner Scott been arguably the best bullpen, the best closer in all of baseball this year. But Marlins will be getting a great prospect in Spencer Jones. He's I believe the number 74 prospect in all of baseball. The Yankees number 2. He can do it all both ways. It just, do we trust the Marlins to develop him and really reach his full potential? That's been the age-old question since the new regime's taken over. But I'd say it's by 60-40 Yankees if I had made a decision about it.
One funny coincidence, which I didn't really think about when I was putting this together, but I really thought of it afterwards, is the main issue with Jones, especially this year, is his strikeout rate, 37% in Double-A right now. That's a number where if you ever see it at any level of the minors for really any player, it really scares you, because it put so much pressure on you to do damage during the limited amount of time we're actually making contact. At the same time, it isn't all that different from where Jazz was exactly 5 years ago when he was a highly regarded guy entering the 2019 season with the D-backs. Had a really poor half season in Double-A. He had a strikeout rate of like 34% at the time when he was traded straight up for Zach Gallen. And that was not a super popular move at the time, just because of that same fear that, like, wow, this guy has to improve a lot and develop a lot as a hitter in order to come close to his ceiling. There's a lot of risk there that he simply isn't going to hit enough. And as it turned out, even if Jazz hasn't hit his ceiling quite yet, he's still been very productive when he's been healthy throughout his big league career. What are your thoughts on this, Alex Carver, as well? You got a peek at this before I publish this general trade idea. Which side do you think would be more comfortable with this offer if it was on the table? Jazz and Tanner for those 3 Yankees prospects.
I think mutually beneficial. It would just come down to Jazz Chisholm's ability to play in the infield still for the Yankees, and if they still think that he could do it, because they don't need help in the outfield. So it would come down to Jazz Chisholm's ability to still play the infield, most likely second base. I don't think he has that much of a future at shortstop. So it would come down to what the Yankees really regard his ability to still play the infield after playing the outfield for a season and a half. Spencer Jones is a very good player. I was just looking at his splits. He's a lefty hitter. I was looking at his ability to hit lefties, and he actually has hit lefties better than he's hit righties in his minor league career historically. So I wouldn't really have an issue with him, hitting both sides and playing every day. So because he's a lefty hitter and he's hit lefties actually better than he's hit righties historically in his minor league career. So I think that he's major league ready very shortly, if not right now. I think this is mutually beneficial. Obviously, you'd be looking at him as the centerpiece of the return for the Marlins, and then Peraza, of course, as the other guy that coming back to the Marlins that I also think is major league ready, who is a little bit behind Jones, but the Marlins could bring him up as a possibly second baseman, possibly shortstop. I don't think so, but probably more so a second baseman than anything for Oswald Peraza. So I think this is a fair trade. I think this would be fair. And then you get a wild card in the catcher, Urania, that you have in there. So I think this is a fair trade. I think this is probably a very realistic return for both Jazz and Tanner. As I've laid out multiple times before, even though Tanner's been very good, it could, I'm not saying that it will, it could be the fact that he goes to a more hitter-dominant division like the AL East and gets turned in the other direction, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that including him in this trade is also fair. So especially as, like I said before, as a 2-pitch pitcher. So I think this is a good deal. I think you came up with a pretty realistic trade proposal, and I wouldn't be against this. I think it's mutually beneficial both sides.
So I think the one aspect that I think makes it unlikely is Spencer Jones, 23 years old. He's an old man. He's ancient. Peter Bendix is rolling his eyes at the idea of bringing in somebody so physically mature to his organization when he has his eyes on a long-term rebuild. So I think, Kevin, we've kind of noticed the same pattern with the trades that have been made so far, where the guys that he puts the most value on are the ones that are teenagers right now. So that's probably something that we need to keep in mind when we're going through this process, right? About how they're probably going to, when given a choice, probably want to focus. The Marlins are probably going to go for guys that are even further away from the big leagues.
Sure, but you still need guys to play on your Major League Baseball team, right? And if you have a controllable guys like this on your Major League Baseball team, I think that's the route that they would want to go. And the Marlins haven't shied away from challenging guys. Like, I know you guys hate hearing me say that, they should challenge this guy and they should challenge that guy. Like, this is the situation that the Marlins are in. They need to bring guys up quickly. They need to bring guys up fast. And if you bring a Spencer Jones up to contribute to your Major League team and start his Major League clock because he's ready, that's probably what should happen.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at just the type of prospects, that the Marlins brought in that Arise deal. Yeah, you got a couple Double-A guys like, Spencer Jones out. That would be someone that kind of makes sense and they think would fit a certain profile to bring up there. And then you have the Dylan Heads of the world, and that's kind of where Urania in this case makes sense in that deal, where you're getting the wild card prospect that has been really, really, really good. There's just another way to put it. He's been really, really good in this season, and that's kind of like the Dylan Head said, and prospect honestly that the Yankees can afford trading away. He's not a top 30 guy, so it should be an interesting time for the Marlins, because you're going to see some trades maybe. For example, they trade a Cronin or a FOF, for example, that aren't giving you top 30 guys, or if you're getting a top 30 guys towards the bottom, maybe it's like a 19-year-old, 18-year-old prospect, because honestly, that's kind of what the Marlins want. They want guys who they could develop and shape into their type of player. And that's kind of what we're going to see the next couple of weeks.
It also has been kind of a pattern at least when Bendix was in the Rays organization, that he really values defense and he really values guys that make contact as well. So even if he likes the ceiling of somebody like Spencer Jones, I think the risk that it's not going to make enough contact, that he's just too big to cover the entire zone is something that might scare him. So this is what I thought was the best thing the Yankees could offer. In going through this, I think my conclusion is that the Yankees are going to be kind of an unlikely landing spot, because I don't feel like they have that centerpiece that they're willing to trade. Somebody in the chat, I think it was Demar, brought up Ben Rice, who's had like a bit of a breakout as a rookie. But he's at the major league level, and the Yankees are trying to win games right now. And he's a guy that in these kind of negotiations, it's hard to get a good major league ready player in return in these kind of deals. You really have to, if the team on the other side is steadfast trying to win right now, you kind of have to settle for guys that are not only in the minors, but probably not even on a 40-man roster yet. And so Spencer Jones kind of checks that box. Even though he's in Double-A, he's got time until he even needs to go on the roster, and might not even debut until 2026, depending on how he develops when it comes to the contact department. I want to do kind of a series on this covering other teams. So if people have other teams in mind in the chat that they want me to put together mock proposals for, just let me know, because that's going to take up quite a bit of my time the next couple of weeks leading up to the deadline, where we think.
If they traded for Jones, he would be probably in double AAA for maybe a couple more months and then up in the majors by the end of the season. They have to challenge players like that. They have to do that. Like, that guy has proven that he's ahead of his age. So that, and same with Peraza, like in this proposal that you're laying out, that would be, and yes, I know that Bendix is looking more towards guys for the long-term future, but they should not shy away from guys if they are ready, which is what I said before.
And it would be a conversation we have after the deadline if this does somehow happen. But Spencer Jones is probably the top prospect in this organization. Worst comes to worst, top position player.
Top position player for sure.
Although I would put him over Max or Noble, but yeah.
That's interesting. We do have a special guest, at least one of them, a reunion of sorts.
Oh man, guess who's
with Grant Kiefer, and it does look like where are you exactly? Because
I am indeed in the press box. I'm just on my phone.
Nice, very good. Reporting from Great American Ballpark.
Yeah, we are here, third year in a row in the ballpark. A little different vibes of sorts, especially compared to last year, I would say. Last year, right after the trade deadline, Jake Berger's first week with the team. He had Josh Bell's first week with the team. Old friend David Robertson was here, and Jorge Lopez, who's now known for other things other than being a Marlin. But yeah, definitely different vibes today, I would say. But it was a little weird because the Marlins got in this town last night at 3:30 in the morning. So it was kind of sluggish getting in a little bit. So I don't know what that's really going to bring for this game or this series opener.
Yeah, that is an interesting wrinkle, because yesterday on getaway day, they didn't actually have like the usual afternoon game at all. They played at 8 p.m. Eastern time last night in Houston. I didn't think about that coming in late. So that is, that's an interesting point to bring up. How often have you been to the ballpark this year so far to see the Reds?
Year, I haven't gone to a Reds game this year. I have been to more Marlins home games than Reds home games this year. So I was down Miami last month. Enjoyed it. Got to see them beat the Guardians. But last year Marlins won the series. Year before, the series split under Don Mattingly. They they didn't really win a lot in Cincinnati under Don Mattingly. So I'll be intrigued to see what happens this weekend before the All-Star break. Reds breaking out the Black City Connect unis tonight. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a packed house at the ballpark tonight for sure. Already a ton of people here.
It's quite a difference from what we're used to at Lone Depot.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What's
the injury report looking like?
Yeah, I was going to go to that injury report.
Injury report?
We'll put it up for you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, nothing out of the ordinary. You guys got the info about Otto Lopez getting his rehab. It's going to be interesting. He is going to be playing second base with Jacksonville, the Jumbo Shrimp tonight. Nothing else really crazy to me. Luzardo resting. I no clue when he's going to come back at this point, but safe to say teams probably won't want to trade for him. Kind of forgot about Josh Simpson there for a second. He's progressing as well. I mean, nothing else out of the ordinary, really, I would say.
Yeah, as far as we know with Braxton, with Weathers, they're not even throwing yet. Luzardo, not even throwing yet. So it's going to be a while for all those guys to come back. And with Otto, it's looking like right after the All-Star break, he'll probably play 2 of the next 3 days in Jacksonville, then go on his own All-Star break. And then on the other side of it, probably be reinstated. The Jonah Bride experiment will probably come to an end. Did you guys even realize that Jonah Bride is on the active roster? He's kind of been like an
He's there. Yeah.
I was slightly taken aback when I saw his locker in the clubhouse. Was a little confused for a second. But I think one interesting wrinkle is going to be what do you do with Xavier Edwards? We talked about it today with Skip. I mean, he's been playing really well this month. 389 OBP. I mean, he's hitting the ball really well. This is a smaller ballpark, so I think this ballpark will play a little bit different to his strengths. I'm kind of intrigued to see what's going to happen with him this weekend specifically.
Yeah, me too. He's we put up a poll recently about where people think he's going to finish in the batting average department. Most people had him between 275 and 299, and if he did over a sample of like 300 at bats, I'd call that.
That would be really impressive. That would be very impressive.
So I would take the slight under on that, but so far so good. And
I'd go towards the 270 side, but yeah, I mean he's hitting 333 right now through I believe 11 games so far this month, so he's not playing bad at all for sure.
Yeah. Well, now that we have you, as we go right to the middle of the show, as we usually do, it's flipped fish time, where I take a player who played at some point in their big league career with both the Marlins and the Reds. This one, a recently retired player right here. And I think it's a relatively easy one. I get it 4 out of 10. It might be that might be overselling it just a little bit. So to give you a closer look, just some clues based on the Baseball Reference page. Second baseman, left fielder, third baseman, moved around quite a bit. Lefty hitter from Cleveland, from Ohio. He's about to turn 35 years old, and he played from 2013 to 2020. So think it over the break. Come back on the other side after hearing from Berger and Hicks, and then we'll get Grant's series prediction. We'll talk a little MLB draft, and give you the rest of the show leading into the start of this series. Stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
And we are back for this reveal of flipped fish right here. Our know-it-all in the chat, Sean Millerick from Marlins After Dark, he already knows. But anybody else here, can you figure out who this guy is?
Big muscles. Big muscle guy. We like him.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name, Kevin?
Derek Dietrich.
He's with the Yankees organization right now as a coach.
That's right.
Yeah, what a stud.
It was only 1 year with Cincinnati, right, Grant? But just a very memorable one.
He made the most.
Yeah, I believe during the COVID break, right before the season started, I believe they DFA'd him. I think he had brief stints with the Yankees and the Rangers, and like Alex said, I believe he's back with the Yankees now. It was 1 year. The Reds often have guys who will go crazy in April, and no one knows where they came from. Derek Dietrich was the poster child of that.
That was like him, Puig. Yeah, that was a pretty fun
Yeah, that
team at the start of the
2019
year.
Reds team was electric. That was a fun year.
They had like 5 brawls too. They fought a lot. That team fought a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
and
had
the
Amir
Pirates,
Garrett on
Amir
there.
Garrett won. I believe that was like
Yeah.
the night of the trade deadline, or like the night before too. It was no, we got traded that game. That was bizarre.
I'll make it a little harder when we come back from the All-Star break on the next show with the flip fish right here. But yeah, good memories there with Derek Dietrich. So yeah, I think without further ado, while we have you on, Grant, we'll get your series predictions. So let me just get the background set up for you.
Oh boy.
You know how this works. How many games?
I know how it goes.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Yeah. I believe I did get a perfect sweep by one series prediction so far this year. So we got to keep it going here. I've got the Reds sweeping the Marlins. I think the pitching matchups favor the Reds in the series, especially tomorrow, especially Sunday. Got Andrew Abbott and Nick Lodolo going this weekend, but tonight I think the pitching matchup does favor the Reds slightly, just because Carson Spiers' low walk rate. I don't know how disciplined the Marlins will be against them, so I'm gonna take the Reds and get the sweep.
All right.
Wait, who's the MVP?
Oh.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Hold on. Let me get you back up there.
Hold on. I almost forgot. On the fly. You can never go wrong with Ellie, right? I feel like the one chance I have to pick Ellie, I've got to pick him.
Ellie De La Cruz, series MVP.
Ellie De La Cruz. Also, of note, storyline, my guy, Alex Carver right here, his dude, Brian Hoeing. Brian Hoeing coming from Batesville, Indiana, local to Cincinnati. Had a lot of fans looking to talk to him. You know, if he gets in the game this weekend, we'll see.
Hoeing's the big man in town, huh?
Absolutely.
The big man in town. Big man's in town. Look, you get at this point in the season, you got to work really hard to find storylines.
No one ever does that to Eli, and you may have killed him.
His camera's off.
That's a stud.
That's a stud. That is a stud. All right, hey,
Well,
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's all love to the guys at Fish on First here this weekend for 5 Reasons Sports. Make sure you follow Kiefer Media on Twitter.
Yes, please do. Follow Grant, and thank you for coming on. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.
Grant, you mentioned Brian Hoeing. You get a follow from me, so good job.
Yay. All right, see you guys.
See you, Grant. Thank you. Yeah, we'll try
All
to
good things
get on
come
with
to
it.
an end.
Yeah, try to get on with the show from there. I'm glad that, in all seriousness, very, very happy for Brian Hoeing and that he has that support system. So let us touch on, as we've noted now a couple of times, our next stream just a couple days from now for the draft, leading into the first round picks. And we wanted to take one look at what mock drafts are saying about the Marlins options at number 16 overall right here. And so this is up on the site if you want to check it out. I have a 2024 Marlins mock draft kind of overview. Well, the whole draft situation overview right here. And this is weird. It is weird that a team this far down has so many experts in agreement about how this is likely going to go. From Baseball America and Carlos Collazo, Cam Smith, the third baseman from Florida State, talking about how the Marlins are in on a lot of different college hitters. These are guys that we've profiled on the site. Seaver King from Wake Forest, Caleb Lomavita, forget which West Coast school he's from, Ryan Waldschmidt, and how there is still a possibility that they go underslot for one of these prep hitters if they're not confident about them falling to the second round. From Jim Callis, MLB Pipeline, also Cam Smith. Brings up some of the same names when it comes to college bats. Also Christian Moore from Louisville, and that's Carson Benj from Oklahoma State. So acknowledging that there's other possibilities, but also landing in the same spot. Right now, among these major outlets that I've aggregated, it's only Kylie McDaniel of ESPN that has them going in a different direction with Seaver King, but also acknowledging that it will probably be a college bat of some sort. From Fangraphs, Eric Longing, Hangen. It's also Cam Smith, and then Keith Law of The Athletic going in the same direction right there. So as I said, it is really bizarre that so many teams. Now I have heard, I can add some confirmation that Cam Smith is on the team short list. Sources say that he is one of a large number of players that they'd seriously consider taking if they're available. But the idea that all these mocks are projecting him to both be available and go to the Marlins right here, I find very fascinating. I want to start with Krutchik because Krutchik is a Florida State guy. I don't think you're an obsessive Florida State baseball watcher, but this would be, as far as I know, I don't think the Marlins have ever selected a first rounder from Florida State before. So would it bring you any extra satisfaction if this is the way that it plays out with Cam Smith being the pick?
Yeah, it would. I've seen him develop a lot as a hitter. He's always had the physical makeup for it, but from his freshman year to now, his approach has gotten a lot better. He's got the frame to grow into for some solid power and some solid hitting. Yeah, bat to ball's got a lot better, and his infield defense is pretty good, and it's only gotten better in his time there. He's also not a bad runner at all. Actually, let me see. I think according to his run tool according to MLB Pipeline isn't great, but he's certainly running better than he was right out of high school. I would love to see Miami take him.
You're muted, Eli.
I want to queue up some highlights just so people who haven't seen him play before can see him right here at this point. So these are plays all from relatively deep in the season, the last couple months with Florida State. This is him kind of taking third on a double to left field and taking advantage of an error. And then these next two, a couple opposite field home runs that he has. Where with him, it's a fascinating situation where I think for a good chunk of his college career, he wasn't translating as much of his raw power into game power as people thought. And then that really upticked as we got deeper into the year. And I'm kind of pleasantly surprised if you just want to do the eyeball test, he certainly passes it more than somebody like Jacob Berry did a couple of years ago, where with Berry, it was a big bet on his bat and his bat only, but it's not nearly the same physicality as somebody like Cam has, where I think he could have a greater degree of confidence that it's going to translate into above average power potentially in the major league level at some point. So I think there's a decent amount of upside there. He's a tall guy too, even though he crouches a lot at the plate, 6'3", maybe 6'4", to this point. Carver, how satisfied would you be if this is the way that it plays out in a year where the Marlins are picking lower than they usually are in the draft?
Yeah, I think this is the pick you want. Honestly, I think this is the guy that the Marlins would be most satisfied with if he falls. Like you said, it's not only the bat and power potential and physicality and ability to hit to all fields, it's the ability to stick at third base and to play defense is kind of the main thing. And I don't think there's a doubt. The scouting grades from multiple outlets say that this guy will stick at third base. He has the arm strength and accuracy to do it. So I think that this is the polar opposite of the Jacob Berry pick because he's physically mature at such a young age and he has the defensive ability to stick at a premium position. So I think that this guy would be the guy that you would want, most likely would want, and I think he's where the Marlins are picking. I think this would be the guy that the Marlins would be very thrilled to get because he's so well advanced at in both areas of the game, defensively and offensively. Even though, like you said, Eli, it's been mostly pulled to this season, and he started going opposite field more so this season than any other. But that's usually something that comes in the later seasons of a college career. So to see him start to do it and do it fairly consistently this year, I think is great. And to be from a Florida college, they also have some marketability there as well. So I think this would be the guy that the Marlins would really, really like to get if he falls to them at pick number 16. I think this is their number one.
Yeah, and really quick, just kind of what stands out about Smith over someone like a Barry last time was the defense is actually pretty good. It's above average. I mean, everything I've read, everything I've seen, it's good. It's he has the ability to stick at third. I think Hector put it in his profile as well. I mean, this is a guy who could come up the minor league system pretty quickly. I mean, Carver kind of mentioned how advanced he is. It's a good profile, doesn't strike out too much. I mean, this is the guy. You're kind of hoping he falls to Miami, but I know there's obviously rumblings of a team like Chicago potentially taking him. So I believe there are a couple picks ahead of Miami. So it'll definitely be interesting how this draft plays out. I think a lot of it will have to do with how that top of the draft plays out. No one even knows who the number 1 overall pick is going to be. There's a lot of options there, but in a draft that's so collegiate heavy, I mean, it's really hard to go wrong with guys that the Marlins could take.
And also on Cam Smith, his jump from his freshman year to this year. I mean, he came in and he started from day one. Last year he hit 258. This year he hit 387 OPS over 1100. I mean, that's the guy you want. He showed the jump that he can make. Also about Cam Smith, you saw in those clips, that guy has juice. Jacob Berry, really, he was just, kind of a run of the mill guy. Cam Smith, you saw it when Florida State hosted the Super Regional. He was in every play. He was jumping around the bases. That's the guy you want. I mean, personally. And also Carter mentioned he went to Florida State. Also, he's local. He's from Lake Worth. He went to Palm Beach Central High School, so it's even more marketability. So, I mean, if you're the Marlins, I believe if he's on the board, you got to take Cam Smith.
Yeah. I know that Krutchik might have to bail out a few minutes early on this, so we want to make sure to get his series prediction included in here just in case he has to do it. You're not allowed to pick Cam Smith as your MVP because he's not in the organization yet. But among guys that are actually participating in this series, you know how this works. You have the floor. What are your predictions for the series?
I actually feel pretty good about the Marlins in this series for some reason. I'm going to go Marlins 2 out of 3, and I think Jazz's power surge is going to continue, especially in the small ballpark. So I'm going to go Jazz as my MVP.
Okay. And not a bad pick at all. And I remind people, you never know exactly. No, we've reached the point of uncertainty between now and the deadline where teams, it's distasteful to make these kind of trades before we get to All-Star break. But now that we're here, all bets are off in terms of when potentially something could come together, whether it's Jazz, whether it's Declan Cronin, or anybody in between that has some marketability and some interest from other teams. Did want to make sure I covered this as well. A bit of not really Marlins news, but former Marlins news, old friend news. My guy, Sean Reynolds, former Marlins draft pick in 2016, 8 years ago, as a hitter coming out of high school in California. He spends 7.5 years, about 7 full years in the organization. Gets called up around this date 1 year ago as a pitcher, converted to a pitcher right around the COVID shutdown after struggling, really failing as a power hitter in this organization. Works his way up to AAA, gets called up right before the All-Star break with the Marlins last year, but doesn't get into a game. And right after the All-Star break, gets sent back down to AAA, doing fine overall. He's on the 40-man roster. He's so close. But instead of using him down the stretch, they end up including him in the trade with Garrett Cooper to acquire Ryan Weathers. He goes to the Padres. He stinks it up in really tough AAA Pacific Coast League conditions for most of the last year. And then all of a sudden, something clicks the last couple of weeks. Over the last 4 appearances, like total dominance. He gets called up just today, according to Craig Mish. I haven't seen whether that's official, but it seems like at least for these next few days, he's going to get an opportunity to make his Major League debut. I know Carver has been following his progress just as closely as I have over the last several years. What are your feelings about seeing this guy after a really long and stressful and unusual journey make it to the highest level?
Yeah, I know. It's really cool. I mean, I've known this guy for a while when he was a first baseman and hitting bombs in batting practice. That didn't translate to games. Great raw power didn't translate to game power. They made him a pitcher. And Eli, it's a credit to you because you saw something in him as a pitcher from the start that I don't think maybe anybody else but you and the Marlins did. So he's proved it. His slider is sick, and he throws upwards of 98, 99 miles an hour. He also mixes in a changeup. So for this guy, tallest dude in the world, he's a massive kid, really, really tall kid, to make it from that high arm angle to show the plus stuff that he has to make it as a pitcher. It's a great story of perseverance. Like this guy, I know that they came to him and asked him like a few years ago, hey, dude, this is the Marlins. Like, hey, do you want to try to pitch? And he's like, yeah, whatever keeps me on the baseball field. And that's what kept him on the field. And that's what has brought him to the major leagues today. And that is really, really cool. I do know that he is not forgettable of being called up to the Marlins and not getting to pitch, as you said. And if he is with the Marlins when they face the Padres in early August, I do know that that is something that is pinpointed on his calendar. So that's what I can say about that, is that he wasn't satisfied with getting sent down without having pitched. And he has that date circled on his calendar. So we'll see if he's up then. And if he is, I would expect the guy to throw 200 miles an hour in that game. But super, super cool for Sean. Really cool guy, great dude. And I'm glad to see this. Just a great story of perseverance. Like, just because one thing didn't work out, he put in all the work in the world to make it work as a pitcher. He was in single A like not too long ago. That guy was in single A trying to work it out as a pitcher. So, and he did it. And that's a great story of perseverance. He has passion in his blood for this game of baseball. And I am super glad to see that Sean Reynolds is a Major League Baseball player. That is awesome.
As you noted, not that long until the Padres come to Miami to face the Marlins, less than a month from now, if he's still on the active roster at that time. So hoping that he gets that opportunity to show directly to their face firsthand what they missed out on in order to get that deal. A quick look at what's going on the field tonight. The starting lineups for this series: the Marlins and the Reds. Right here, the first of three, starting on the Marlins side. A little different than usual. Look at that. Edwards batting second in the lineup. I think that is the first time this year, and he may have batted leadoff at some point last year, but overall, Kevin, your thoughts on moving him up on a day where, I guess with Jake Berger resting, that allowed them to move things around, but usually it's DLC in that number 2 spot. Instead, Edwards leaps over him after being just really consistently good ever since he got called up about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, gives a good opportunity to get some runs in early. You got Jazz and Edwards on base. It gives DLC the opportunity, and what Grant really mentioned is a very hitter-friendly ballpark to kind of drive these guys in. So you got DLC, Bell, and Jesus Sanchez there, right after that. And unfortunately, from Emmanuel Rivera down, it's not looking real good. But I do like what Skip did there at the top of the lineup with Jazz and Edwards back to back. I mean, Jazz is a guy who's going to get on base almost, for most of the time. And Edwards has been on this. I think he's still on his hitting streak, so he's been doing real well. So it gives 2 guys on base and gives your sluggers an opportunity to drive them in.
Nate, if Jazz does get traded, is Edwards easily the guy that just slides into the leadoff spot for this team moving forward?
100%. You got to give a guy like Edwards, all the reps he can get. And I think, they're going to be 20, 25 games, maybe 30 games under 500 by the time Jazz is off the team. So why not? He's already up here. Why not let him ride? He came in, I mentioned it last week. The first day he was back in the clubhouse and being called up, he came with a huge chip on his shoulder. He wanted to prove something, and he's done that so far. He's been super impressive. So if Jazz is gone, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, everything else, as you mentioned, really from number 6 down, you're not expecting a whole lot of offense right there. And you talked about how many games under 500. If they lose the series, they're going to be at least 30 games under 500. Like it has really piled up in a crazy way. I wanted to share this before I forget. They've never lost this many games before the break before. They've had teams that have a slightly lower winning percentage overall, but for them to struggle this much in the first half of the season, they are really behind pace of 2013, of 1998, of 2019, of all these teams. There's been a lot of really non-competitive Marlins teams. And so far, this one, they had a first half that is unprecedented in this franchise's history. And this is still with 3 games to go. Still 3 more this weekend to add to that loss total potentially right here. But it started off bad and it kind of stabilized. It looked like adequate for a lot of May, and then really since then it has been historically bad again with this team. So I really salute everybody that continues to follow along with this stuff daily, and I know there's a lot of people who do. Whenever I bring it up, people remind me how many of them are still tuning into all this stuff, even though they're being put through a unique kind of suffering right here. Now, anybody, Carver, on the red side that, well, I guess Ellie De La Cruz is the obvious option right here. Anybody else here that jumps out to you it's a pretty young Reds team, but one that's also a lot more competitive than the Marlins this season.
Yeah, so I know they just called this guy up, but I like where he signs. I mean, that guy has been super good. I mean, I think they called him up mostly to hit lefties, but he's hitting against the righty tonight. So, I mean, wow, that's pretty cool to see him in the lineup. I guess, more so in a case where he might not have been per the idea that many people had when he was called up. But that guy made it happen in the minors. He was absolutely pretty damn good in the minors throughout his minor league career. He gets called up now. I know he was on a pretty good hot stretch in the minors before he got called up. And I think his minor league season this year before he got called up was meh. But he gets called up now in a moment's notice for a need, and he's been filling it pretty well. And now he's in the lineup against the righty. So, it's cool. It's cool to see that. It's cool to see a guy get a chance, and it's been good so far in a small sample. So, I like him. Tyler Stevenson, I know that he is a decent catcher. I know that he is a guy that is kind of undervalued, I would say, at that position. So it's cool to see him. I've seen his family. I know his family from being around them in spring training and stuff like that. That's a cool guy. He's good. I think that he's going to be fine as a catcher long term. I think he's fine. Ellie, of course, is Ellie. And then Jonathan India, of course, with the career that he's had, pre-pro, that's a guy to watch for sure long term as he gets his career really going with the Reds. So I really, I hate the stigma around these teams that play in hitter-friendly environments, that it's only because of where they play. These guys have skill for sure. So I really like these players. I like Rhys Hines. I like Jonathan India, Ellie, of course, and I do like Tyler Stevenson. So I think this is a decent young lineup. It'll be a fun series, and this team is obviously doing better than the Marlins. So, which is, I mean, a lot of teams are, many teams are. So almost all teams are. So that's not to say that much, but no, I like this lineup as a young lineup. I think they're a fun team to watch in terms of young players. So it's a cool team.
And one more guy you didn't bring up, Jeimer Candelario hitting third tonight. If you guys remember last year when he was with the Nationals, he absolutely tore the Marlins apart. In 5 games, he hit 650 with 13 hits, a homer, and 3 RBIs. I mean, that guy, whatever he was eating when he was in Miami he was killing him. So, and he was also a trade deadline target last year before he got dealt to the Cubs.
Oh yeah.
So, another guy to watch. Same with Jade Fraley too. He hit that tank off Floro when they were in Miami last year too.
He went deep on Yeri. I believe that was the first homer Yeri ever gave up. So
that's those Candelario conversations at this time a year ago, he was taking up so much oxygen because anybody but Gene Segura and like this guy he's a rental, he's on the market. Are the Marlins going to give up a Jake Eater to get him in return and all that? I remember that. Yeah. Thank you for refreshing my memory about that part. Now they're on the different side of things. We were joined just in time by Jeremiah Geiger from Marlins 9.
Yeah, a little late, but I appreciate Eli having me on once again.
Of course. Yeah. Final, other than that, let's see. Is there anything just on top of your mind thinking about entering this Red series as I've talked about during the show? Like you just don't know what this team is going to look like, even on the other side of the break. The All-Star break is really like this dividing line between when teams start to get really comfortable making potential deals. So, yeah, what if anything, are you especially interested in watching these final 3 days of the first half?
Like for the Marlins?
Yeah.
For me right now, it's kind of about Jazz and it's kind of about the pitching at this point. I think we all expect Tanner Scott to be moved, so there's really not going to be a surprise there. And then right now, like from a fan perspective, just watching Jazz, and watching and see if he can like somehow bump up his trade value to, if they want to include him in a trade package, but just kind of enjoy him as a fan. And then I guess, Jesus Sanchez, I think he can get really hot and cold. Maybe he can put a little hot streak together because obviously the numbers are there. He hits the ball extremely hard, but with him, it's always been consistency. And then the final part, I know a lot of people are talking about Xavier Edwards. I'm a Xavier Edwards believer in terms of his hit tool. But in terms of playing short, you know, I kind of want to see what they do there. But they keep rolling them out at short, so just kind of watch those three guys in particular, I guess.
Yeah. Without further ado, less than 15 minutes until first pitch. Let us get into prediction time for the Marlins versus Reds series.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to like toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Yeah, I feel good about myself after this past series, but I think most people did because most of us got that right with the Marlins getting swept by the Astros. Let me see if I have the updated leaderboard right here, as we are now 30 series into the season. To this point, it's still Daniel Rodriguez on top. Highly close and competitive grouping right here. With Nate in 7th place, myself tied for 8th. There's Kevin down in 15th, and Carver just out of view to this point. But we always encourage people, if you're a super sub, fishonfirst.com/subscriptions to sign up. You make predictions with us all season long. And yeah, those that have been held strong to the idea that this team stinks have been rewarded for it in the prediction time standings right here. Yeah, final series for these guys. We've already got predictions from Grant Kiefer at Great American Ballpark and Alex Frutchik as well. Let's get to the rest of the grouping right here then. Let me set up the music that we have. The backgrounds. As we often do, we'll start.
Yeah. I need to stop picking the Marlins so I can start moving up on this thing. So we're going to go with the Reds taking 2 out of 3. And my series MVP is going to be Nick Lodolo. So I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Okay. Alex Carver. Let's hear your predictions, sir.
I have zero confidence in Marlins pitching. I've said this multiple times on these predictions. So I'll go Red sweep, and my boy Reese Hines, series MVP.
Our late arriving guest, Jeremiah. Let's hear what you have in mind.
Yeah, I agree, Alex. The Marlins are struggling right now. Reds, a little bit better, only 4 under. Give me the Reds 2 out of 3. I'm going to go Elly De La Cruz, MVP. I think he's going to have a huge series.
Your turn, Nate.
I think the Marlins take 1 as well, but I don't have not a lot of faith in the hitters or the pitching in the series. I'm going to go with Andrew Abbott, lefty. Marlins can't hit him. Series MVP.
Marlins win 2 out of 3 for some reason, for who knows why. I can't believe that they're going to go into this break lightly. And it's more so that I also don't fully trust the Reds. I watch a lot of Reds baseball. I picked them as a team that I thought was really going to take off, especially during this middle portion of the season. And they've shown signs, they've shown encouraging stuff. But in this particular the way that things line up this particular weekend, I think the Marlins are going to upset them 2 out of 3, with Trevor Rogers making quite a statement heading into the break. Quietly, a lot more good than bad from Trevor as we've gotten deeper into the season. I think this will be one of his best starts of the year to cap off this series and head into the break, I guess, on a high note, if you could say so. So that'll do it for this show. We're going to be back in barely 2 days, though, as I keep reminding people, next stream coming up on Sunday during, I guess, not long after the series finale of this and shortly after the start of the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. We're going to be there on time in order to lead you up to the 16th overall pick and then react right afterwards. And we hope people will join us. Well, we know people are going to join us because it has been a very highly attended stream the past couple of years. We hope those keep coming back for more. The first draft of the Bendix Pilieri era that we're all looking forward to that, as well as the break overall. So thanks everybody that's been sticking with us throughout the first half of the season, and we have a whole lot of good stuff leading you to the trade deadline and beyond here on Fish on First. From Eli, Kevin, Nate, Alex Carver, 7 excellent minutes from Jeremiah Geiger of Marlins 9. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting what we do right here on FOF. Go Fish.